The first thing that occurred to me was, I think Kevin's out of his mind. Nobody will think this is Megan. And then I thought, well, of course, that's the whole point, that it's a different story, it's a different time. And she has a quality which is extraordinarily like the young Megan. But physically, they're slightly different bodies. So the big question for me was, do I try to sort of replicate the Megan look, or do we look for something different? And my immediate solution to this problem was we look for something different, because she's a totally different child and she's much younger. I had the advantage of Kevin doing a screen test with her and was able to see exactly how she was going to wear the clothes, what she was going to look like wearing them. And that was a huge advantage, and also the fact that she was very interested in what she was wearing. What I knew was going to work for her was her kind of innocent, not innocent in a sugary, foolish way, but her kind of innocent approach to what she was doing. And that really translates into what she looks like. And so that things that I thought, oh, this will never work, and then suddenly it would go on her in a fitting, and you'd say, this is really going to work. This is not a silly idea. And I think the best example of that, of course, is the scene when she suddenly is in the stable in boys' clothes, because that's all that they had that would even vaguely fit her, and they're too big for her. And you think, oh, this is a bit like Mickey Rooney as a child. And then you realize, no, it's because she's bringing a whole different sensibility to it. Just as everything that you see, the clothes too have to tell a story. And if the story is confusing or they don't tell the story, the audience is very disinterested in them. I think that, for me, is the most important part of costume design. There's a lot of practical aspects to design that people don't think of, that you have to look at how much the budget is, how many people you've got working on it, and you say, well, these are the things that are possible, and this is where we want to take it, and these are not possible, so there's very little point in wasting your time either thinking about it, because it's never going to happen. And also, there are a lot of costumes, in fact, the majority of them in this film, that were renovated, reworked, rethought from existing stock and from other costume sources. And the question, of course, in a film is always marrying those things together, so that hopefully the process is seamless. And if it isn't, I think the costume designer has failed abysmally. You have to have some connection with what exists and what you're using, and otherwise, again, you get a very jarring notion of the clothes, is that you get one group of people in with one look and another group of people who may be secondary characters, not just background people, looking totally different. The trick is choosing a color palette that works, and you don't necessarily have to choose a palette that works for the entire movie, because often it's just a particular sequence. Obviously you don't want the scenes with the Shirley MacLaine character in her house to look the same as the scenes in the orphanage. I mean, that's just not what design's about. But there has to be an overall patina of the clothes so that they do have some relation to each other, although the sequences in the story and the arc of the clothes are different. With the two different time periods, of course, the designer has an advantage, is that the aesthetic of the 1880s and the aesthetic of the 1940s, while the Second World War is just over, are two totally different approaches to clothes. And so I could also take advantage of that and help create the separation. I mean, there's no doubt which time period you're in, because the clothes are so totally different. But that you could also reinforce that by saying, all right, this palette tends to be much darker than the more contemporary period does. And that's just one very simple way of doing it. The great trick, I suppose, of being a successful film costume designer is that you have to be able to work in a collaborative way with these people. Now, I had worked with Shirley MacLaine before and was very aware of what she was, her approach to costumes and what she was prepared to do and what she wasn't prepared to do. And again, there's no point in trying to talk Shirley MacLaine into wearing something that she's not going to wear. And Barbara Hershey was very different in that she's had a lot of costume experience. She has a very strong image of herself, but she also has a very strong image of period. And it was, in fact, a very different, for me, kind of collaboration. And we kind of clicked in a way that she appreciated my sensibility and my taste, and I appreciated what she was saying, not only about the period clothes, but about herself, what she felt worked for her and what she didn't. And I think it was very successful.
I suppose you're Mr. Matthew Cuthbert. My name is Anne Shirley. Anne spelt with me.
It seemed to me important that the dress that we first see her in the very first Anne of Green Gables had to come from somewhere. And so that when she leaves, it's really quite a severe but quite pretty dress. I mean, there's a lace collar and, it has the buttons all match, which they don't eventually. And then hopefully the audiences, even if they don't recognize it, they will see again the transition between that particular incident in Anne's life and where she ends up with the Hammonds and then where she arrives at Green Gables. You want there to be resonances in what I've just done with what I did, was it 20 years ago? I hate to think how long. Because there is, again, there's an arc to the story, and it would be ridiculous to try. I mean, if somebody else had done this, it would have looked probably quite different, but it would be silly to try and say, well, no, we're not having any of what we've done before. We're going to do something completely different, because that's just, I think, artistic nonsense. Is that you want there to be a connection and a resonance between all we've done.